Hello and welcome to the 7th video of the series on how to use the TI nSpire. In this video, we'll learn how to use some of the probability functions and cover how to use regression equations. These are two pretty small topics. Neither one of them are really long enough for one video, so I kind of just decided to lump them together. So there's three main probability functions that you have to know how to use. There's the factorial, there's combinations, and there's permutations. I won't be going into the detail of why you would want to use combinations, permutations. This is purely how to use the calculator. There may be more videos coming out later on how to, unlike the contextual applications, but for now this is just the calculator. So most of your probability, in fact all three of these, are going to be under menu and then number 5 for probability. And you see these three options right here. You have number 4 for random, which will depending on what you put in, will give you random numbers, and then this distributions, which is a very statistical thing, but you won't really be using these two with probability. These are the three main ones that you'll be using. So first one is factorial. This one's pretty easy. If you want to find what is 10 factorial, you type 10, and then you go to menu 5 1, and it puts that little exclamation point out there, and then you click enter. The other thing you can do, you might find that this is faster. You can get to a factorial in a different way. So let's say you wanted to find 12 factorial. You can also come down here. You see right here with your question mark, exclamation point. If you click that, then our second thing, the second thing in the menu is actually a factorial. So if you click that, it's not just an exclamation point. It'll also give you the factorial. So the next one is permutations. And that's right under factorial, so menu 5 2. And if you want to find what is 8p4, you just do 8 comma 4, and it gives you that. For combinations, it's literally the exact same thing. If you want 8 choose 4, yeah, it's the exact same process, just one is permutations and one is combinations. So the other big thing is has to do with your regression equations. So the probability is pretty simple. That's really all that there is to it. But the regression equations are they've got a little bit more going on with them. So to get to your regressions, you go to menu, and then number 6 for statistics, and then number 1 for stat calculations. So you see we have a bunch of different options here. I'll go more in depth on these. I'm thinking of doing a series that's based on statistics for schools that don't necessarily have an AP Stats curriculum. But the main one that you're going to be using is linear regression, and right, because on every single calculator test, number 47 is a linear regression. Yeah, so I'll go over these. So you might notice that 3 and 4 are both linear regression, and one is mx plus b and one is a plus bx. They're literally the exact same thing. You can pick whichever one you want. There's no difference. I usually go with 3 just because that's how my muscle memory developed on my calculator, but it truly does not matter. So I'll click 3. And then we have our X list and our Y list. So basically, this is all of your independent variables, or your X variables. This is all of your Y variables. So to put this in a list, you have to do Control and then right parenthesis. You see this gives you your curly braces. That's how the calculator knows that you're dealing with a list. So I'm just going to type in some, you know what? I'm just going to make this easy. I'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And for my Y's, I might do something a little bit more interesting. Maybe 0, 4, 8, 11, 17, 20, something like that. So when you're doing your linear regression, you would have points, like in the problem, right? You would have points, and you just have to make sure that your X and your Y is lining up. So you would have one point that was 1, 0, one that's 2, 4, one that's 3, 8, right? So just make sure your X list and your Y list is matching up. So if I clicked OK right now, you can also just click enter. You don't have to arrow over it with the cursor. You can just click enter. I could just click enter right now and it would give me the equation, but I always want to wait and see what is it saving my regression equation to, because this is the single biggest time saver when it comes to these kinds of problems. So I noticed that it saves to F1. Hopefully you're following along with your calculator. Um, it might say something different. If you've never done a linear regression before, it'll probably say F1 as well. I'm not 100% sure of that. So if it doesn't, then don't worry. But I believe it should say F1 if you've never done it before. So I have that typed in. I'm just going to click OK. And you can see it outputs the equation. So if the line is mx plus b, it gives me my value for m, gives me my value for b, gives me some correlation data. Basically, this is a measure of how accurate or how closely the data fits this line. In this case, we have an R of 0.99, which is, that's a pretty good R. The closer it is to 1, the more it fits along the line. So points that fall exactly along a line would be at 1. So this is a pretty good estimation, pretty good regression. So we have this, but let's say that we want to plug in a value like 12 into here. So what most people will do, they'll say 4.057142857 times 12, and then minus 4.2, and they'll do that. And that's perfectly fine. Like, that doesn't take too long. But because we saw what equation it saved it to, we saw it saved to F1. If we want to plug in 12, we can do this just like regular function notation. I do F1. You see how it goes bold? That means it's stored as a variable. So if I do F1 of 12, it actually gives me the answer that way. So it's not super quick with linear regression, but in cases maybe you're doing like a cubic regression or a quartic regression where you have like a lot of terms, this can really save you a lot of time. The other thing is maybe we want to see what is x whenever f1 equals 20. We'll try that. So I'm going to go to a solver, which is menu, algebra 1. Hopefully you've seen the previous video or you're comfortable with that already. And I want to see what is x whenever my function is equal to 20. So I can type it like this. f1 of x is equal to 20, comma x, and it gives me that value. Okay, the very last thing. The last thing I'm going to do before ending the video is just show you a little bit of a shortcut, another shortcut you could do. So I'm just going to get 1, 2, those are decimals. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know, 0, 5, 9, 15, 16, 20. I don't know, I'm just making these up off the top of my head. So you may have scenarios where you want to take like a certain operation and apply it to the whole list. So there are some regression equations or some problems like number 47 where you're required to like square your whole X list. Hopefully you've heard of that before. If you haven't, just go and practice with some of these regression. Like the more you do, you'll start recognizing that sometimes you'll have to apply scaling principles to your regression equation. So maybe for this problem I'm doing, I have to take my X list and square all of these values. So what you can do, instead of just individually squaring each of these, if you come out here and just do like that, you can raise the whole list to the second power and it'll have the same effect, right? If I want to add 6 to everything, I can do that. If I want to multiply everything by 10, I can do that. Even if I want to, I think this will work. Even if I want to like take the log of all of these, that'll also work. Right. So I mean, stuff like that. As long as you apply it to the whole list, it'll kind of distribute it to each of the different things. So I'm just going to do it with the squaring. And you see when I click OK, it gives me a very different list. So kind of a lot to unpack here. The probability is not too hard. The regression does have some interesting features that you're going to have to get more comfortable with. You may have noticed that there's a couple of extra menus here. These do not come up very often. In fact, this category list and include categories, that's not something I ever used during the 4 years that I did UIL. I never used it. This frequency list I used maybe once or twice, but I think it was on one of Larry White's tests. And so I haven't seen Mr. McCurdy include anything about this on his tests. Yeah, but that's about it. These bottom three, it doesn't really matter. It's okay. You don't have to know about them. So, if you learned anything, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. If there's something you feel like I missed or you want me to go into more detail on, don't be afraid to leave a comment. And I will see you in the next video. I'll see you next time.